Good morning, kids. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios about what if Spider-Man villains had Venom symbiotes. Now, yes, technically by the time y'all have seen this, it's not really brand new. Hell, technically even at the time of recording this, it's not brand new. It's about a week old at this point. But here's the thing. He hasn't kind of released any other videos as I see fit, but I still like checking out his artwork. So, we're gonna shut up, enjoy, and watch.
Fun fact, at one point during the production of the new Spider-Man 2 game, Insomniac had planned to have a venomized version of Sandman showing up, which
Ooh.
ultimately ended up getting scrapped. But that got me wondering what Sandman would look like if he was venomized. In fact, what a whole bunch of different characters from Spider-Man 2 would look like if they'd gotten venomized. So in today's episode, I'm going to return to a Popcross Studios classic topic of venomizing
Spider-Man.
characters, specifically venomizing villains from the new Spider-Man 2 game.
Venom
Though fair
Kane.
warning, you could probably infer some spoilers from the lore that I've written for this episode, because I've written it like it's an alternate branching timeline from what happens in the actual game. But if you are sticking around, I hope you enjoy the story and artwork. Let's get into it, shall we?
Let's move.
Hit like
If you want. Subscribe if you feel like it. By the way, enjoy the show. Yeah, Whoopsie's kind of a lot.
Most people in New York remember where they were on the day
Of course, starting out with the hunter himself, Kane.
the Spider-Men were killed. An alien symbiote used in an ill-conceived effort to heal the son of Norman Osborn had gone mad and was using the meteorite it had come to our planet on to create more like itself, to spread across New York, with the ever-present threat that they could infect the entire planet under the claim that they were healing the world. Both spiders tried all they could to stop Harry Osborn and the symbiote in their new form as Venom, but Parker and Morales were not strong enough and were slain by the alien menace. Chaos continued to spread across the city with seemingly no one to stop it, and things only got worse when some of New York's greatest villains began to become infected. Kraven, whose gang of hunters had been ravaging the city for weeks prior to the symbiote's uprising, had been believed to be killed at the beginning of this whole mess. But in truth, before his light had dimmed for good, a part of the original Venom symbiote had taken host in his body. It healed him of his injuries from his final battle, and was even able to cure him of the cancer that had ailed him for so long. Beyond that, it then enhanced his already mighty form even further. He'd already had superhuman strength and senses, but those were elevated even further now. He gained an appearance that reflected some of the beasts he'd hunted.
And this is to go even further beyond! I had to, it was right there.
Gaining a snout and teeth like that of a lion, and a tail to match. Kraven and his alien bonded under the name Crave, and connected to the hive mind of the symbiotes. Then, they were given a new task: get his brethren into the raft. This was New York's supermax villain prison, where some of the most dangerous beings to ever scourge the city were held. The guards there were on high alert and doing a good job keeping the symbiotes out, but they'd be no match for an infected hunter like Crave. Even with the symbiote bonded to him, influencing his mind, Kraven was not so weak-willed as to be completely controlled. He still desired what he'd been after before being infected, a good hunt of a worthy foe. Now that he had the further enhancement of a symbiote, he needed an even stronger foe to challenge him. The villains of New York had not impressed him thus far, but maybe with their own symbiotes, they'd fare well as worthy opponents. As compelled by the hive mind and his own desires, Crave swam to the raft and tore through its guards like they were nothing, even fighting through the sonic attacks used against him. They were effective at slowing him down, being a proven weakness against symbiotes, but still not enough to stop his rampage. With the tears in the walls and security systems that Crave left in his wake, he'd carved a path for hundreds of symbiotes to slink into the prison and infect their own supervillain hosts.
Oh boy.
All the while, Kraven was searching for one man in particular, with a fractured mind, who'd just recently returned to the raft. Flint Marko.
Oh crap. If I remember correctly, I think that's Carnage. I think. I can't exactly remember. I could be 100% wrong.
Prior to the symbiotes attacking New York, Flint Marko, better known to most as the Sandman,
spent I was wrong.
On the raft, put away originally by Spider-Man, but he'd since been released on probation. That is, until Kraven's hunters had come looking for him to give Kraven a worthy hunt. Terrified of what was coming and without any authorities believing that he was in danger of being hunted by the madman, Marco was becoming more and more desperate for a solution. And this was only exacerbated when his daughter Kimia went missing.
Oh
Suspecting that
no.
Craven had taken her, this was enough to make Marco relapse into reckless criminal action. He created hundreds of sand duplicates of himself to search the city, and in the process lost control of his mind. He went on a rampage of New York once more, only to be stopped and locked away in the raft again by the Spider-Men, meaning Craven had never actually gotten a chance to face him. Now, with the symbiote attack underway and the Spider-Men dead, Craven once again had his eyes on the sandy foe, eager to see
Wait a minute, did we even get to see the final? Well, I guess we did, but for some reason my brain just completely blanked out.
the symbiote would do to the already impressive specimen. Crave found his cell and broke Marco free, against his will infecting him with one of the symbiotes. At first, he resisted, but as the symbiote bonded with him, it told Sandman that together...
Hold on, just a quick question, but why do all of them have the spider symbol on their chests? The only reason why that was on Venom is because the Venom symbiote had originally bonded with Spider-Man, who had the sigil on his chest. So, I guess all of these are just duplicates of Venom now over on different bodies, which would explain the spider sigil. Okay.
They could do the one thing he'd always wanted to do most: keep Kimia safe. As a new hulking green, blue, and black symbiote calling himself Gravel, Marco had all his
Gravel, I
abilities
like
as
that.
the Sandman amplified. He could once again split off hundreds of sand copies of himself, but now they were all infected with symbiotes themselves and connected to the hive mind, while also specifically being under Marco's control. He sent dozens of these to his ex-wife's home, instructing the swarm to tell Kimia that these sentinels of himself would protect her from anyone or anything that came near her.
You know what? I
He
like
would
this.
have gone himself, but he had another matter to deal with. Being now linked to Craven's mind and his anger being amplified by the symbiote, Marco could see that his daughter had been returned home safely, but that, as suspected, Craven had taken her to lure him out, and even if they were now connected by their symbiote forms, Gravel was not willing to forgive this action. Gravel
No doubt.
attacked Craven
He's a
with the
dad.
full intent to kill his foe, but the hunter reveled in this battle, which became an all-out symbiote civil war. Craven's gang of hunters had all become infected as well, so they faced off in a battle with the sandy symbiotes,
Oh,
and dozens
boy.
of already terrified New Yorkers were dying in the crossfire. It could have raged on for weeks, if not more, if they hadn't been stopped by Venom, the leader of the symbiote swarm, who claimed that
the
they had a
OG.
bigger issue to deal with than this petty squabble. Someone was working on a way to defeat the symbiotes, an anti-venom that could potentially wipe out their entire kind from this planet in an instant. And it was a
Is
certain
it
doctor that
anti-venom?
Craven had met and already attempted to hunt.
Alright, I'll say this. So far, Gravel, number 1 of the episode. But then again, we're still early. Let's see who's next.
Quick interruption to say that if you like my Venomized drawings and you want a whole bunch more of them, you might want to pick up my Monsters of the Multiverse art book. It's the first art book that I've ever made, and it's got a section with a bunch of Venomized drawings in it, including My Hero Academia characters, Pokemon, famous cartoon characters, and of course it's got a whole bunch of other creature designs in there, from dragons to fantasy beasts, kaiju, dinosaurs, aliens. It's got 132 pages, 226 creature designs,
damn.
mostly all based off cool pop culture characters, and I'll have it linked in the description if you want to pick up a copy. But for now, back into the show.
Let's go. Ooh! Oh! Hold on, folks. We'll be right back. Oh yeah, here we go with the reptile.
Dr. Kurt Connors was more racked with guilt now than he
No, Dr. Lizard. No, Lizard? The Lizard. Oh my god, I can't remember what the hell he's called.
had been at any other point in his life. Prior to this invasion, he'd been forced by Craven to once again transform into his mutated lizard state, and had gone on a rampage through New York City, only for Spider-Man to seemingly cure him of this form for good. Unfortunately, promptly after recovering, he'd also learned that the alien symbiote he'd used as a healing method for Norman Osborn's son had become the greatest threat that the city, and possibly the world, had ever faced.
Oh damn.
He'd tried to instruct Spider-Man on how to catch it and defeat it, but clearly the spiders hadn't been enough to handle it. Luckily, another man had been trying to help the Spider-Men prior to their deaths, a man who had his own share of guilt over things he'd done to their city. Martin Lee, better known to some as Mr. Negative. Lee had been with the spiders when they both lost their lives, but in their final battle, Lee and Spider-Man had realized that the symbiotes had a strong aversion to his own negative energy abilities. Sounds of certain frequencies had proven effective against those infected, but Lee's abilities were leagues more effective, allowing him to force a symbiote off of somebody with only a few strikes of his energy blades or projectile attacks.
Oh, I like it.
With his dying breath, Spider-Man had told Lee to go find Curt Connors in a secret Oscorp lab in the sewers. And now the two men were doing all they could to try and figure out how to enhance Lee's abilities further, or possibly even create weapons for others to use. But the symbiotes had eyes everywhere, and it wasn't long before their research was cut short by the likes of Crave and Gravel, along with a whole horde of infected people. Lee did his best to hold them off while Connors gathered all the research he thought they needed, but there was only so long Lee could fight an army single-handedly. Not seeing that more symbiotes were getting in from other parts of the lab, Connors soon found himself becoming infected as well. Worse still, the symbiote was able to latch onto the still lingering remnants of lizard DNA in Connors' system and reawaken them, turning him into a new form of the lizard, unlike anything he'd become before. Lee saw his ally transforming and tried to help him, but there were so many symbiotes swarming the facility now that he couldn't even get to him.
There was nothing he could do.
As Connors was fully overtaken, he was able to say one final thing.
Lee, run.
The lizard, as his symbiote form, Rexard, attacked the other aliens surrounding Lee with what little control he had remaining, giving Lee a chance to get away. He fled from the lab and out into the chaotic New York streets, feeling even more guilty now than he had before for abandoning his ally, but swearing to do all he could to free Connors and the rest of the city, as soon as he figured out how.
I still gotta give it to Gravel. He's definitely taken #1 this episode. And Rex, I'll give him second, depending on the fourth one.
Mr. Negative was trying to get out of the city so he could have some space to try and think and make a plan.
Hold on, folks, I'll be right back. There's something I gotta do. And we're back, and before we continue on with this video, look at this picture here of Mr. Negative. With the build, does he not look like John Wick? It's literally John Wick if someone just took the negative filter to him. Like a whole... I can't unsee it.
The ability to give other people fragments of his powers, which he'd also used to control people's minds back when he ran a gang called the Inner Demons. He thought that he could possibly do that again, take control of a large enough army of people with his own powers to fight back against the symbiotes, but he didn't feel he could bring himself to do that anymore. As much as an army of people with his powers could help, he'd also be forcing all those people to put their lives at risk against their will. If it failed, then they were all killed or infected. He felt he'd be pushing himself past the point of ever being able to find redemption. Unfortunately, while he tried to come up with a new alternate plan, he found that the city was becoming too overrun to escape from. Every symbiote in New York was looking for him, and it wasn't long before they found him during an unexpected pause on the George Washington Bridge. Because he'd been imprisoned for some time now, he'd been unaware that the bridge was still under repair after having been destroyed in an incident between the second Spider-Man and a group called the Underground. He considered just jumping into the water and swimming to safety, but in the midst of deciding, the symbiotes had descended. This time, Crave, Gravel, Rexard, and even Venom himself were all there to capture him. Venom grabbed and pinned Lee, fighting through the aversion to his powers, and forced a symbiote to infect him. Lee fought back as best he could, trying to rip the alien off him, but as it bonded to him, the symbiote started to change. Lee heard a fleeting voice in his mind, but it faded quickly. Nothing was overtaking control of his body or emotions. His abilities were keeping the symbiote from corrupting him, and in contrast, he was actually corrupting it. By the time it completely overtook his body, all he felt was more powerful. He immediately leapt onto Connors, digging his new claws into the Doctor's lizard form, and Lee let his symbiote spread into his target. His alien was not only amplifying his powers, but it was giving him the ability to convert other symbiotes to his side, working under his own new hive mind. Dr. Connors turned from a black symbiote form to white, more like Lee's new anti-venom form. Lee then went right for Kraven, grappled with Lee, thinking he could overpower him, but quite quickly, Kraven's symbiote form too was then altered into a new state. With full control of himself returned, Kraven was suddenly eager to go another round against Venom. Lee leapt onto Sandman next, converting him as well into the new anti-venom hive mind, and soon Lee's reverse infected were spreading their cure to all the symbiotes around them.
Yes!
Venom fled the scene, realizing he needed to come up with a new plan of his own, but there was little he could do now. The anti-venom was spreading faster than the infection, and soon all the symbiotes would be under Mr. Negative's control. While it would certainly take time to cure everyone, Lee finally started to feel...
Okay, here's the name he probably would needed to call himself in the white Venom form. They instead of anti-venom, just literally the cure. Well, because he's technically curing them of the Venom symbiote's control. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm geeking out so hard.
Some guilt lifting from his heart. He couldn't undo the things he'd done in his past, but using a group of supervillains to save New York certainly felt like a good step towards redemption.
Okay, yeah, he takes number 1, Gravel takes second, Brax will take third, and Crave, I'm sorry, but you'll have to take 4.
If you enjoyed this, you might also want to check out my Spider-Man Villains as Spider-Man episodes. I did 2 of those earlier this year, or you might even like my most recent Spider-Man Villains mixed with Batman Villains episode. That itself is also a whole series on this channel. Also, let me know if you want another round of this, because, we could use characters like Black Cat, maybe Scorpion, Wraith, maybe even take some villains from the first game. Give me your ideas in the comments.
Not?
And
Why
if you want
not?
the high-resolution art and inks from this episode, they'll be up on the Popcross Studios Patreon, where high-resolution art and inks go up a day before a video is released. That'll be linked in the description. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course we're ending this video on some kind of positive and inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is a quote from a man named Mike Dooley, who simply said, taking action breeds clarity. As an example of that, when I started this channel, it was originally an animation channel, and it was only from starting to do that and taking action on those kinds of videos that I eventually realized that I needed to pivot and try something else that I enjoyed more, which eventually got me to where this channel is today. It was a very good paying full-time job that I absolutely love doing. I hope that's inspiring.
I didn't know you did animations.
See you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.
Man, I would have loved to know about those animations way before. But anyway, folks, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.